realize, all right? When the stories don't line up, you don't got all the information. You're giving this guy that doesn't want to be emotional, this guy that doesn't want to be affected by losing his family. And the truth is, all I see is a guy who's in love and lost the love of his life and his family. So please, if you want a level of respect to exchange both ways, do me this favor, all right? You can say, I'd rather not say, hey, that's none of your business. But a bald-faced lie to me, all right?
What's the lie?
You ever witness a moment on reality TV that's so uncomfortable you literally have to look away from the screen? Because that's exactly what happened when Marsau Scott opened his mouth about Kimmi's mental health. It wasn't just a disagreement, it wasn't just a little tension. It was a moment that made the entire fandom gasp and reach for their phones. What started as a conversation about emotional well-being turned into something so dismissive, so unnecessarily loud, that viewers felt the sting through their television screens.
Depression, and people are talking about, oh my God, it's a bad problem running rampant. And here's the reason why it's running rampant, right? It's because we don't know what it really is.
And what made this whole situation feel so much heavier was the timing. Kimmi wasn't bringing up drama. She wasn't stirring the pot for a storyline. She was talking about something real, her mental health, her struggles, the weight she's been carrying in silence. She doesn't do that often, especially not on camera. Kimmi is usually the mediator, the calm one, the woman who holds everyone else together while barely holding herself up. So when she finally opened up about what she's been dealing with internally, people listened, or at least they should have. Now, let me tell you this, the shift in that moment was instant. You could feel the energy in the room drop the second Marsau decided to respond the way he did.
In a moment like this, I think that lesson learned.
Yes, but you can know something, but hearing it from somebody else make it probably hit a little different.
You think somehow me going to talk to him about something is going to be a wake-up call? I think it's a tough situation to even be suspected of a DUI.
People weren't just confused, they were furious, because instead of offering any kind of comfort, instead of just being quiet and hearing her out, he went in on her with a tone so cold and sharp it felt like a slap. And the crazy part, he didn't stop there. He kept going, making it clear that he didn't care about how his words were landing. He made it clear that her vulnerability was an inconvenience to him. But here's the twist. This moment didn't just stay in that scene. It followed them. It grew. Because fans instantly felt like something was deeply wrong with how he dismissed someone who was literally trying to be honest about her pain.
In most of our situations, I tend to read a lot more into the situation than sometimes is necessary. And then there's some times where I think he might be thinking about a situation, but yet he don't really say it on the outside. However, at the end of the day, I'm there for him when he needs me. He's there for me when I need him.
Strap in, because this story isn't just about a heated conversation. It's about disregard. It's about emotional distance. And it's about a moment that might have changed how people see Marsau Scott forever. It all started in what seemed like a simple, quiet conversation. There was no yelling, no slamming tables, just a group of people sitting down to talk through their issues. Kimmi sat there with her usual calm demeanor, trying her best to be open about what she's been going through. She spoke softly, carefully, because she's not the type to blow things out of proportion. She's not the type to make everything about her. But this time, she let her guard down. She talked about the weight she's been carrying, the emotional battles that people don't get to see. She talked about how hard it's been to keep it together while everyone around her is falling apart.
Dating a dude, and I met this dude through my friend. I'm not gonna go secretly marry him, then try to tell her later.
Secretly?
When me and Marsau first started dating, I asked all my friends, did he try to holler at any of y'all? Because I'm like, if he did,
Well, didn't you
it's a
date
wrap.
one of his friends when you guys first met?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Never. Anything
That's
else
not
you
what
want
I
to know
heard.
about me in my past?
I'm just saying that's not what I heard.
I never dated one of his friends.
I'm coming for you, but you sitting
lied
here
and
just
say,
trifling in this.
Because I feel
That's
like it's
coming
a
for
trifling
me.
situation.
Okay.
And let's be real, Marsau is someone who always seems strong. She's the one who keeps the peace, she's the one who avoids drama. So when she finally decided to speak her truth, you could tell it took courage. It wasn't a performance, it was honesty, raw and unfiltered. But the moment she finished sharing, that's when everything shifted, and not in a gentle way. Marsau leaned back, crossed his arms, and hit her with words that felt dismissive in a way that was almost cutting. He didn't just disagree with her, he completely invalidated what she was saying. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, but it was dismissive in a way that made people's blood boil. He didn't pause to consider her feelings. He didn't acknowledge that she had just opened up about something deeply personal. It was like he couldn't be bothered to understand where she was coming from. And that's why people reacted the way they did. Because if you watched closely, you could see Kimmi's face fall. Not dramatically, just enough to show she wasn't expecting that response. Her eyes shifted, her posture changed, the air around her got heavier. You could tell she instantly put her guard back up. And here's what made the moment even worse. Marsau didn't stop to correct himself. He didn't soften his voice, he didn't try to rephrase anything. He doubled down on that cold reaction, like her emotions were just some inconvenience he didn't want to deal with. The scene wasn't loud, but it was loud in another way. The silence between them said everything. Viewers felt the discomfort through the screen, and soon after the episode aired, social media turned into a storm. Comments poured in from people who understood exactly what it feels like to be shut down when you're trying to be vulnerable. Some fans tried to defend him, saying he's always been blunt. They argued he wasn't trying to be hurtful, just honest. But those voices were drowned out by people who saw something completely different. They saw a man who lacked empathy in a moment where compassion was needed. And let's be real, honesty doesn't require cruelty. You can be direct without being cold. You can disagree without minimizing someone's feelings. What people felt from Marsau wasn't honesty, it was indifference, and that's why the backlash grew so fast. People felt protective of Kimmi. They know her journey, her health struggles, her emotional battles, everything she has endured publicly and privately. So watching someone dismiss her so easily hit a nerve. But here's the part nobody expected. The reaction behind the scenes was even more intense. According to sources close to the cast, the group didn't take this lightly. They were genuinely uncomfortable after seeing how Marsau responded. Some reportedly felt like the moment crossed a line, not just for television, but personally. They know what Kimmi has been through. They know how much she carries and how hard it is for her to open up. So to see her vulnerability met with that level of coldness, it hit home. A few cast members, including ones who usually stay neutral, pulled Marsau aside privately. They told him respectfully but firmly that the way he spoke to her felt harsh. They didn't attack him, but they made it clear that his tone didn't sit right with them. Some said they felt uneasy. Others said they were shocked. A few even admitted they would never want someone speaking to them that way if they were sharing their struggles. And this is where things get even more complicated. This moment created distance. Suddenly, alliances on the cast shifted just a little. People who normally defended Marsau stepped back. People who usually let things slide didn't this time. They didn't want to be connected to the backlash. They didn't want fans thinking they supported the way he spoke to Kimmi. But the real twist, Marsau didn't seem bothered at all. With the backlash growing online, many viewers expected him to slow down, reflect, or offer some kind of explanation, a comment, a clarification, maybe even a calm acknowledgement that he could have approached the conversation differently. But no, instead of easing the tension, he made it worse. According to people close to production, Marsau stood by every word he said. He claimed people were overreacting. He felt like the audience twisted the moment into something deeper than it was. He insisted his bluntness was being misinterpreted as cruelty and that he wasn't going to apologize for being truthful. But that stance only intensified the frustration, because this wasn't about honesty versus sensitivity. This was about emotional respect. Fans weren't upset because he disagreed with Kimmi. They were upset because he didn't care how his words landed while she was expressing something deeply personal. And when he brushed off the backlash, claiming people who don't know him shouldn't judge him, that made viewers even angrier. They weren't judging his entire character. They were reacting to the exact behavior they witnessed with their own eyes. One viewer wrote, "We're not guessing who he is. We saw the whole thing play out." Another added, "Nobody asked him to sugarcoat anything. They asked him to care." And honestly, that's exactly what this moment was about. It wasn't about being politically correct. It wasn't about walking on eggshells. It was about basic human decency. Kimmi's story hit home because so many viewers have lived through that same dismissal, whether from a partner, a parent, a friend, or a sibling. Watching her sit there, trying to remain composed while her feelings were brushed aside, reminded people of their own pain. It reminded them how it feels when someone treats your emotional truth like a burden. And that's why this storyline isn't fading anytime soon. It became more than just TV drama. It became a mirror reflecting how society still struggles to make space for emotional well-being, especially for Black women, who are often expected to be strong 24/7. So now the question is, where do they go from here? Will the tension between Marsau and Kimmi ease, or is this the beginning of a deeper divide? Will Marsau ever acknowledge the weight of what he said, or will he continue standing firm in his belief that people are simply too sensitive? And how will this affect the cast moving forward? Will alliances shift even more? Will other cast members side with Kimmi publicly? Will viewers hold Marsau accountable as the season continues? What we do know is this: the moment wasn't small. It wasn't harmless. It left an emotional mark on the cast, on the viewers, and most importantly, on Kimmi herself. And regardless of what happens next, one thing is clear: words have power. And when someone finally gathers the courage to speak their truth, the least we can do is listen.